外看到这4只巨型龙虾吗？它们可是当代艺术大师 Philip Colbert 来新展出的一部分。随这集的吵什么，一同走进这个五彩缤纷的龙虾乐园。Philip Colbert 是当代新波普艺术的领军人物，被誉为安迪沃荷教子。Colbert 的作品以多种媒介呈现，像是油画、雕塑、服装、潮玩、NFT 等都有涉及。其中最具标志性的是永远跟他穿同款西装的龙虾先生。
My name is Philip Colbert, otherwise known as the Lobster.I tell people I became an artist when I became a lobster. This is my first time in Singapore. I'm very excited to be here. I have 4 large-scale sculptures in Marina Bay, presented by Saatchi Gallery in association with Mukacha Gallery. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to also have met a lot of my Lobster citizens who happen to live in Singapore, who also live in my metaverse Lobsteropolis.
龙虾乐园曾在世界各地展出，其中包括意大利、俄罗斯、瑞士、中国。本地的展览还包括2个从未在其他地方展出的作品。
The large lobster painter sculpture, which is almost 3 meters in size, it's the first time I've shown it, and I love the image of myself, because I am the lobster, holding this drooping paintbrush with the amazing cityscape of Singapore behind. It's like the painter on tour. Another work in the show, which is the first time I've shown, is the lobster spam can, and I love the word spam, because obviously my inbox is completely spammed. So it's the one word that captures my feeling of the 21st century. When I grew up, spam was like a can of cheap sort of meat in the supermarket, and I loved the graphic pop colors of it and the sort of humor of it in a way. And so it's a sort of a little nod to Warholian reference of the ready-made, of the can, but also in my own humorous sort of way. Also, I find meat is a great subject for art history. Francis Bacon, James Soutine, many of the great artists of the past have taken the idea of meat as a great subject, because as human beings, meat represents the animal inside of us, and in a way which is masked by civilization and the idea of things being dressed up, but at the end of the day we're still just animals, and we also consume other living creatures, so we are sort of beasts in a way. I always find it quite a revealing symbol of our mortality and of human nature.
到底龙虾先生为何钟爱龙虾？他又和龙虾有什么相似之处？
For me, when I was a kid, I had this feeling that lobsters had telepathic powers because of the antenna, and also like I perceived them as like these aliens, because they were living in the bottom of the sea and they looked prehistoric. I felt that, as humans we're obsessed with aliens in outer space, but actually we have aliens on Earth, and the lobsters to me had this funny telepathic power. And then as a kid, I was always obsessed with art history. So I was studying art from antiquity to the 18th century Dutch still life period, and then surrealists I would see like lobsters appearing in art history. And then Picasso painted lobsters. Obviously Dali made lots of artworks. I mean, the lobster was Dali's greatest muse. I mean, even more than his wife, I think. The lobster symbol with Dali is one of his most iconic works. So I started feeling this historical narrative with lobsters, and that I just felt there was like this power beyond through the lobster, and so I just started channeling that energy and drawing lobsters all the time, and people then started calling me the Lobster Man, because I was actually wearing suits that I made with my lobster pattern all over the suit, and so it was like a lobster suit, so people called me Lobster Man. And then when I really started painting again, it seemed logical that I should draw myself as my persona, because people called me Lobster Man. So I just thought, well, I'm just going to embrace it and become Lobster Man. And then in a way, and I guess I just think of myself as the lobster. So the lobster is me. So when people ask what's the lobster called, it's actually just me, but it's my mask of my creative identity. And the freedom for me of art is trying to push the boundaries between my fantasy world of freedom, but also bringing that back into reality and trying to push that creative possibility in reality. Because I think that is the great power of art, is to bring that energy into reality and set and like empower others to do the same. Yeah, it's funny, but I guess, you know, I do now see the similarities because I'm very white, like extremely pale skinned. And so if I'm in the sun, I actually go completely red, like scarlet colored. So it's quite interesting the fact that that's the most iconic quality of a lobster is the fact it turns red. Because if you think about the history of lobsters in art, like if you think of the Dutch still life period in the 18th century, the lobster, the dead lobster, the red lobster on the table scene was like the Marilyn Monroe of the pop period. It was like the iconic, iconic protagonist of those paintings, and yet it was a life-death symbol. It was representing our mortality, yet it was also mimicked to be a living. So, and I find that red, I mean, I'm also, you can see I wear red socks. My wardrobe at home is only red socks. So red has always been my color. I guess as like an artist, it's definitely red is my soul. So my mortal soul.
究竟 Colbert 为何会走上艺术这条路？
I guess as a kid, I was always like drawn to art because I guess I was a bit like an outsider at school. I was a bit like in my own world and daydreamy sort of kid, and I wasn't particularly motivated by school rules and pressures and stuff. So I was very much living in my own world really, and so I guess art then became this magic window where I would see paintings and they'd be presented like a window with these fancy frames, and there'd be a story and a magical perspective in a way that was so cherished. And I guess I just became very interested in that, and I just also had a memory which would remember pictures very well. So like I would see a painting and I'd remember the painting pretty intimately. And so I found myself just coming back to painting a lot and reading about painting and artists, and so it was definitely the thing that kept my mind like sort of fulfilled somehow. And it was only like when I was like 16 that I came across a book by Friedrich Nietzsche that really like blew my mind, like this philosophy, and it really suddenly I looked at everything in my life and like the whole process of everything, and I was like, I have control. What am I doing? I don't need to be defined by the school or like the fact that I'm not engaged. I can take control. I can actually change it. And that really like was key to then I think my whole life after that point, in terms of trying to, and I think my art is very much my response to life, and you know what I have to say and like my view of things, you know, as well. I've recently been working a bit in robotics and AI, and I just launched. It's a development of my digital artwork. I launched a collection called Lobster Bots, which are basically 333 unique animated sort of lobster robot, mutant robots. And the people that we've sold that collection and the holders of that collection, soon to be revealed, will each get this really cool like sculptural robot. And there's a special like software I created with developers where basically the holder of that robot then is able to access this Uber Lobster Bot brain online. And then in my studio, meanwhile, I've created a Uber Lobster Bot robot, which is with University College London. It's like a super functioning lobster sculptural robot. It's highly like maneuverable with eyes and everything, which you control. So the holder basically telepresence controls and becomes in my studio the lobster robot for an allocated moment of time. So they see themselves and they take telepresent control. And that, I find that amazing philosophically, because in that moment they become the robot artist.
Philip Colbert 位于本地画廊和滨海湾滨水步道的2处展览将持续至2月6日，入场免费。